back on Zoom, and we will begin the post-screening panel promptly soon. Thank you so much.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. We hope you enjoyed the film, and I'm excited to have a conversation with our esteemed panelists tonight. But first, please welcome my co-moderator for this hour, FYLPRO board member and COVID-19 Task Force Chair, Lizelle Tanglao.
Thank you so much, Lou. Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here with you and everyone here as we close out Filipino American History Month with this amazing panel of filmmakers.
Also, a big thank you again to all our presenters for this event. FYLPRO, led by Joshua Ang Price, Midwest Filipino American Coalition, led by Jan Paul Ferrer, and the Professional Filipino American Youth, or PFA, led by Lauren Lalicon. Let's call on Joshua real quick to say hello to the audience today, as he didn't have the chance earlier. Josh, are you on?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I am calling in from, well, it says Iloilo, but I'm really in Little Rock, Arkansas. But I thought I would put my Iloilo background because Jhett and I, both our families are actually from Iloilo. So
Nice.
we share that in common. So I thought that would be a nice touch. But I hope everyone enjoyed this night. FYLPRO is so excited to be part of this event. And I have to say, on a personal level, when Jhett first told me about this production for Lingua Franca back in, I think it was February of 2018. So 2.5 years ago, you know, at that point, it was just a dream. And he told me all about it. And now to see it come to fruition and be on Netflix, it's just, it makes me very proud. So we're all very proud of Jhett and all the work he's doing. And so glad to be part of this production and air this premiere tonight. So thank you for having me. And I'm going to go ahead and pass it on back to you so we can get that panel started.
Thank you, Josh. We have an amazing slate tonight. Before we begin, I'd like to play a quick message from Cecilia Mejia, who is the lead producer for the film Yellow Rose. She was unable to join us tonight because of another worthy cause for her own not-for-profit organization, The Art of Me, but she has a message for us.
Hi everyone, this is Cecilia Mejia. I am so sorry that I can't join you on the panel today, but even in these times, duty calls. I run a nonprofit called Art of Me, which works with students in underrepresented communities. We focus on arts and education, and we're premiering one of our newest student films tonight, which was directed by a fellow Filipino American, Mary Evangelista. So watch out for her name. She's up and coming. But I am really excited for you guys to have this panel with PJ Raval, who I've had the honor of working with as a social impact producer on Call Her Ganda and many other projects. It's wonderful. And then Jhett Tolentino, who's one of the lead producers for Lingua Franca, which was such a beautiful film, and I'm just so honored to be part of it as a co-producer. Really, really proud of Isabel and that team. I'm also the lead producer for Yellow Rose, which is now out in theaters. across the country. So please check out if you feel safe enough to do so, or if not, check out the soundtrack. But overall, I'm just really, I'm saying this a lot, but I'm excited because I think this feels like more than just a moment for Filipino American stories, not just through film. There are novels coming out. I'm hearing stuff about music and dance. So it feels like a movement, and a long time coming movement. We are the third largest immigrant group in the country, and it's about time people hear our stories, know our stories, and that we get to tell them. You know, long time ago, I say a long time ago, a year ago, I was, someone asked me, you know, how do you keep going? I was on this panel, how did you keep going with this 10 years of working on Yellow Rose? And really, when my answer to them was, you know, there's so much heartache, so much no's. It wasn't until the Filipino community decided to band around us, and you know, we saw this home for this film. But what I did realize, it was in that moment when things changed for us, was when, instead of trying to fight for a seat at the table, we decided to create our own table. And I think that's what we just have to keep on doing. Create our own table, invite other people to the space. The table is limitless. I think we just need to keep supporting each other, sharing our work. That's the best thing that we can do, and really spread the word about our story. So with that, enjoy the panel. I hope to connect with all of you soon, and happy Filipino American History Month.
Thank you, Cecilia. So we introduced them earlier during the show. Now let's get to know our panelists. So gentlemen, tell us more about yourself and your favorite Filipino or Filipino American film. So let's start with three-time Tony and Grammy Award-winning producer of Lingua Franca, Jhett Tolentino.
Hi everyone. Hello from New York. What did you ask, Lisa? I'm sorry.
Tell us more about yourself and favorite Filipino or Filipino American film.
Okay. About myself, I think it's all out there. I don't wanna take much of your time. My favorite Filipino American film. Oh God, I'll be so biased, but it's behind me. There's not much of choices actually. So I hope this starts the revolution that we should keep making Filipino American films. So.
Great. All right. Thank you, Jhett. Next up, we have actor and artistic director and founder of Upstart Productions, Joel Trinidad.
Hi. So, for my favorite Filipino American film, I'm not really sure it's a Filipino American film, because it's about the Philippines and it stars Filipinos, but it was written and directed by, I think, a Welshman or an Irish, something like that. Anyway, the movie is Metro Manila, and I really liked it because it had a very gripping story, and it was very well acted, well executed, and because the writer-director is not Filipino, he was able to show us in a different light. You know what I mean? It's sometimes if you look from the outside looking in, you get a different kind of truth, and I really like that. Yes.
Right. I remember that showing on Netflix too, Joel.
Yes,
here in
yes,
the US.
it's still showing. Yes.
Cool. All right, thank you. And lastly, we have queer award-winning cinematographer, director of Call Her Ganda, PJ Raval.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here. I think that's a tricky question to ask because there's so many good films and so many good filmmakers. So I'm going to answer it in a different way. I'm going to tell you the first Filipino film I ever saw, which I loved when I saw it, was Perfume Nightmare by Kidlat Tahamig, which is an amazing film. But what I would say is one of the first maybe Filipino American films that I saw, that I watched and recognized it specifically as a Filipino American film, would probably be The Debut, which had a huge impact in terms of culture also. So those would probably be some films that I think are pretty fundamental films.
Thanks, PJ. Yes, I remember The Debut. That's certainly one of the emerging Filipino American films that almost everybody watched. And I also wanted to mention that unfortunately, Top Nazareno is not able to join us today. I think it's, there's a typhoon in the Philippines and internet has really been shaky over there. So I hope everybody's safe in the Philippines though. But I'm so glad Jhett, Joel, and PJ, you guys are able to join us tonight. I'm so excited to dig in. And for folks on Zoom and on Facebook Live, remember to drop in your questions in the chat and we'll try to get to them all tonight. Okay, just for fun, let's do a rapid fire round. Quick answers for quick questions. We'll go in this order. Jhett, then Joel, then PJ. All right, ready? Ready? All right, here we go. First question. How long did it take to make your film?
16 days.
I've never made a film.
2.5 years.
Wow, there's a big difference.
Who won that round?
Everybody's a winner.
I'm a theater guy.
Right.
Is this age before beauty? The arrangement? Oh, thanks.
That means I would be first.
Are you sure?
I hear some competition going
Fairly
right
sure
away.
that I'm the oldest person here.
Okay. Lisa?
All right, next question. If given the chance to choose one creative professional, director, producer, writer, or cinematographer, actor of Filipino descent to work with next, who would it be?
Matthew Libatic.
Cinematographer. Jhett Tolentino. I'm a theater guy. I write. I know he's right here, and it might be embarrassing for him, but
we're already discussing that.
Yes, I'm a playwright and a theater director and a theater actor. So my world is in theater, and he's won Tony Awards. Who in theater wouldn't want to work with Jhett Tolentino?
Right.
We'll make that happen, Joel.
Yes.
I would love to work with Cecilia Mejia, who I am currently working with.
Nice, thank you. And we're gonna look forward to more projects coming out soon with those synergies, huh? Okay. Do you have a Filipino or Fil-Am idol or inspiration growing up? Who was it?
I don't know, growing up in the province, we're not really exposed to Fil-Ams. But the first Fil-Am that I've heard of was Tia Carrere. Did I pronounce that right? Yeah, I think that's my very first introduction to Filipino American actors.
I don't have a Fil-Am idol.
Could be Filipino.
Per se. Yeah, my dad is my idol.
Right.
Noel Trinidad.
Oh.
I grew up watching his plays. He's the reason I'm in theater. He's the reason I act. He's the reason I write. He's the reason that I write lyrics. He remains my number one idol.
Noel Trinidad, that's right. Grew up watching Champoy.
Yes.
Right. PJ.
I don't know if I have an idol, but I really deeply respect Maria Ressa, who's the editor of Rappler. I think she's amazing.
Oh, yes. And she's got a movie coming out too as well.
And she does, yeah. Ramona Diaz
1,000 Cuts.
made a movie,
Yeah.
1,000 Cuts. Yeah.
Right,
I've
right.
seen it.
Can't
I've
wait
seen
to
it.
see that. Yeah.
It's it's kind of a tough watch, but in a good way. You know what I mean?
Ah.
Nail biting.
Yeah, it's wow.
That's in my next list of these. Go ahead, Lisa.
Definitely worth seeing that for sure. Okay, so next question. In your family, do you have a Tito boy or a Tita baby or both?
Oh, Tito boy? Or what is that? What does that mean?
So you know what, Jhett, if you don't have a Tito boy or a Tito baby, they revoke your Philippine citizenship.
Oh my God! Tito boy and Tita baby. Oh my God! Then yeah, I guess so.
Okay, good.
I have a Tito boy, a Tito baby, and I'll do you one better. I have a Tita girly.
That's right. The second one.
I have both, and I'll do you one better. My dad, his nickname was Boy C.
Right. All variations of boy.
Oh yes.
Okay. And last question. What's one very Filipino item in your home right now?
I'm using it. It's warm inside the apartment because the heat is on. It's because outside is 40 degrees. So I'm fanning because you asked me to wear a barong. So here you are. Okay.
I have the best Filipino item in my house right now is my girlfriend, Nikki Trevino. And since I live in the Philippines, everything here is Filipino.
Mine would be I have a broom from the Philippines. It's actually on my wall, so I can't take it down and show it to you.
But PJ, is that the indoor broom or the outdoor broom?
Oh, it's the outdoor broom.
Oh, our listing thing.
That is so cool.
Where did you get
The
that?
listing thing.
I got it when I was in the Philippines. Someone gave it to me as a gift because I was talking about how I wanted one so bad, and then someone gave it to me. And then I got it and I brought it home, and I was like, you know what? It's so nice. I'm going to put it on the wall.
Did you hand carry that?
I did.
Oh my God.
So
Philippine Airlines. They were like, "What are you doing with this?" And I was like, "Can you just put it in there? I'll just hand it."
When I come visit you in Austin, I'm gonna try to look for that on your wall.
Oh yeah.
Is that considered as a weapon?
Could be. It could be. Okay, now that we've all warmed up, let's get to the meat of today's discussion. So to start, we've seen how Filipino and Filipino American films have been hidden from the limelight, despite our numbers and our long history in the US. I'm curious, what are your thoughts on the current state of Filipino films now, with more hitting the film festival circuit, Netflix, and theaters? Where do you see the industry going?
Are we going the same order?
Oh, no, it can be in any order this time.
Okay, well, since I started, I spoke up first. For me, it's rising for sure, but generally going back, we've been budding ever since. It seems like we've never really broken into the Hollywood box office, which is a dream, I guess, to any Asian American community. And also, box office number wise, there has been a 12% increase since 2016 in the box office, contributed by Asian American films. And of course, not this year because we're dropping down to at least 60%. And definitely we can ride with the success of the Korean films, the Chinese, the Japanese films winning from Cannes to Sundance. Everywhere they're racking it up, and we should strike, the iron while it's hot.
I'm not a filmmaker, as I've said, so I can only give you my perspective as an artist and as an audience member. But I think that we're only at the beginning. I think it's just starting. Okay, I'll give you an example. When I was a kid, people outside of the Philippines didn't know what a Filipino was. Okay, they sort of heard of the Philippines, but they had no mental picture of Filipinos. And I remember in 1989, which is most of the people on this panel were probably not alive yet, there was a movie called Her Alibi, starring Tom Selleck. And there was a big punchline in that movie where a woman just started speaking Filipino. And that was a huge, huge, huge thing here in the Philippines because, oh my God, there's a Filipino in a movie, in a big Hollywood movie. And it was the punchline was that she was in Filipino. And okay, not a really great start, but that was in 89. Now, you've got stuff like Lingua Franca. You've got movies like Metro Manila. If you watch The Boys, that series on Amazon, there's a whole scene where there are Filipinos talking. And one of the leads, the guy who plays Mother's Milk, one of the lead characters, interviews somebody in Filipino. This could not happen just 10 years ago because we were not in the mainstream at all. And now we're a very small part of the mainstream, but we're getting there. So I have only high hopes for the future of Filipinos and Fil-Ams in cinema.
I agree. I mean, I think right now is an amazing time for Filipino American cinema, and kind of to echo what Cecilia said, right, in her video, is I really do think this is a movement right now, and I hope we sustain it. And you know, let's just look at some of the titles that's been named in our conversation within the last minute, right? Like obviously Lingua Franca, right? Yellow Rose, A Thousand Cuts. You know, even my film, Call Her Ganda. If we think about it, current Filipino American cinema is being made by Filipino American filmmakers and supported by, you know, the producers. There's usually a producer who's on there that's Filipino or Filipino American. And so I do think we're at a moment now where the creators are wanting to tell their stories, right? And finding ways to collaborate with other people to make that happen. And that's what's brought us here tonight. So I do think, and it's an amazing time period, but I also think it's because you know, many of us are trying to do this. So what I would say to that also, you know, kind of going to Jhett's point, you know, sadly, the industry really functions also on who they think there's an audience willing to see something. So one thing I do want to encourage everyone who's listening and watching is that if a Filipino film is made with Filipino content, trying to address and tell the story of, you know, someone from the Philippines or a Filipino American, go see it to show that there is an audience for it. Because if one film comes out and it doesn't do well, that film then gets cited by every other industry person of why they shouldn't make a Filipino or Filipino American film. So it's really incredibly important for the community to support work about its community. So please keep you know, doing things like this where you're supporting, you know, work.
Great point, PJ. But you know what? I have a surprise for everybody here, including the moderators and the panelists. We actually have Isabel Sandoval right now in this chat, and I asked for permission for us to call on her. Isabel, hi. I want to give you the stage to say hello to everyone.
Hi, I was just actually watching and Luella noticed me and the participants. So I just wanted to say hi and thank you again for hosting this Netflix watch party. Thank you, Luella, Jhett, PJ, Joel. I'm excited. I've been enjoying the discussion so far and looking forward. Can't wait to hear more. That's it. Just I thought I'd say hi real quick.
Thank you so much, and congratulations again on your recent win for Best Actress, right, in Russia, in the Pacific Meridian Film Festival. So thank you for dropping by. I know you have another commitment right after this, but I appreciate you coming on. Thanks, Isabel.
Thank you.
All right.
All right.
Let's move on.
Yep. Let's go to the next question. So, you know, this year's Filipino American History Month theme is Filipino activism. So for the panelists here, where do you see the intersection between representation in films and social justice?
I'll let them go first.
Okay, if I let's see if I understand the question. You're talking about how the representation of Filipinos in cinema affects social justice, right?
Could be both.
Yes, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I again, not being an expert here, I just think that okay, art mirrors life. So whatever you create in your art should reflect what is happening. So if you want the fact that if you talk about Filipino issues and you make movies about Filipinos and you know, talk about Filipino hopes and dreams using Filipino actors, that is already a kind of activism because it includes the Filipinos in the discussion. And yeah, because as long as you're speaking a Filipino story, then people will get the message. Sometimes you have to look for the message. Like I find that when I write in English, okay, and I do it via comedy. I don't do dramas, but the message is still there. The inherent Filipino-ness, my inherent Filipino-ness comes out, right? Does that answer the question? Does that touch on any of the topics at all? Does that make any sense?
Yes.
So
No,
in
it
other words,
does.
it's always there. It's always there. Sometimes you just have to look for it.
I'll go next. I mean, I think film is one of the most powerful mediums, right? It's one of the most powerful tools that we have because it's a entry point to empathy, right? It allows someone to understand someone else's experience. I know it sounds like a cliche, but the walking in someone else's shoes really has a huge impact. So when we are thinking of social impact, social justice, any of these things, I know that sometimes we quickly gravitate and say, well, what issues are being addressed here? What issues are we looking at and discussing? But we can't discount the fact that just witnessing and understanding someone's personal experience and just their life is really some of the most powerful things we can have, right? So thinking of lingua franca, like imagine a viewer who just watched this film is now going to understand the challenges that an undocumented, trans woman from the Philippines is experiencing in this current moment. And think about it. We have an election that's happening in just a couple days. Someone might watch this and actually think about this and change the way that they're going to vote or pay attention to what politician or what elected leader is discussing issues that might be surrounding this, right? So I do think films such as Lingua Franca can have incredible, huge social impact. And I just think, filmmakers, as storytellers, producers as storytellers, I just hope everyone is, thinking about that because whether or not, the film sets out to do that, it has the potential to do that. And I'm really excited to see that that I'm seeing a lot of the films that are coming out right now in this movement of Filipino American cinema, I think are conscious of that. And I think really are pushing the dial and really pushing discussions and opening conversations that need to be had. So I'm really proud of the films that are coming out right now.
I think that we should have let PJ go first because he just said what was in my head, but much more eloquently. Thank you, PJ. You're going first.
Thank you.
For the rest of the questions. Okay.
Oh no.
I'm just gonna say what he said.
Okay.
No, but it's interesting though to get the perspective too from somebody who lives in Manila because it's a smaller world now, right? Everything that happens to Filipino Americans here also affect Filipinos in a way. And I wanted to say, to PJ's point, you're absolutely right. A lot of Filipino films right now really are Filipino American films, I should say, is really making use of that voice in movies. You've got Yellow Rose talking about immigration. You've got Basurero, talking about issues in the Philippines about EJK, extrajudicial killing because of the drug war. You've got Happy Jail, also kind of like making a point about our prison system. So I think it's a really, really great time that we are being highlighted. They're allowing us to use our voice, and we are using our voice wisely. So appreciate you guys who are really, really leading the charge on that.
Yeah. If I may add, as to how I integrate, social justice to my style of filmmaking, is that for someone who grew up in the Philippines and very much familiar with the typical melodramatic, over-the-top comedy and drama films over there, I'd like to do the opposite, right? I don't want my films to be gory or graphic. I'd rather do it poetic and sensual, not literal but literary. So just to somehow elevate that we Filipinos also have some strength in making groundbreaking films that could compete and could be out there as well. Just like the rest of our Asian neighbors.
Thanks, Jed. Thank you. So let's switch gears a little bit to the making of your films. Are there any challenges in producing and selling a film with Filipino characters as leads?
That's
Okay,
you guys.
okay, I'll start. Yes, there's always a challenge in every step. Well, to be honest, I was the last piece of the puzzle that came into Lingua Franca. I was the last member of the team because they've been trying to do the film, and somebody sent me the script, and at that time, I was still on Broadway with Children of a Lesser God with Joshua Jackson, and I was contemplating. That was my 18th show already in New York. And I've reflected on the shows that I produce. There's only one Filipino there, which is Here Lies Love, right? And the artists in the Philippines have been messaging me, what can you do for us? So at that point, I was already contemplating on shifting my business model in championing the Filipino story. So, and then when I got hold of Lingua Franca, I just had to drop everything I was doing, and I said I have to produce this film because it's the first film in the world to be written and directed by a trans woman. No ordinary trans woman, but a trans woman of color and Filipino. And Isabel has been a friend of mine since 2015, and I didn't even know that she's trans and she's a filmmaker. And so after reading the script, I called her and we sat down and we discussed that I wanted to see if she's collaborative enough with my thoughts on the film and where we could take it. And sure enough, she is. Happy about that. And of course, I take on the commercial producing because that's my expertise. So I got all the commercial funding that the film needed in 6 months' time. And we launched the film in January 2018, and we shot in September, October. We launched that through Kickstarter, and we got about $32,000 community funding all throughout the world. So that was great. But attaching a network, of course, from the Philippines is the ideal for us Fil-Am filmmakers, correct? But I had such a pushback going after them because one wanted to change the script. They wanted some sort of, how I would say, graphic thing that happened to Olivia, the main character. And also they wanted a different ending. So that was a big shock. You're talking about at least $500,000 funding, right? But, so I went back to our team and we decided to just be independent, to stand on our ground and tell a story as we see it fit. And I think looking back, I don't think we would have reached or gained such accolades, winning 8 international film festivals, if we changed the ending, if we introduced violence to Olivia. Because to me, for our team, it's not necessary. We do not want to spoon feed the audience. We make art as if it's a two-way street. We give the audience some space to dissect, to sink in what they just saw. It's very thought-provoking, and that's it. We like to let them in to the living room and for the conversation. That's why we're still talking about this. If it's just an ordinary film with Olivia accepted his proposal and they happily married after, it's another story that has been told a million times. So we wanted to make something different. So those are, to me, the main challenges as a producer on this, because when you have a network who's willing to back you up with all the money that you need, but wanting to change the narrative, so that's a big shock. But we stuck to our guns and made a film.
Thanks for sharing that, Jed.
My pleasure.
PJ, how is it on your side?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is a challenge, and I think there's a lot of challenges for a lot of filmmakers who are not white, to be quite honest, or who are making films about characters that are, who are immigrants, for instance, or making films centering voices of LGBTQ plus people. And I think what the challenge is there is there's, as I mentioned earlier, sometimes there's a really misguided argument of audiences only want to see certain types of films, right? And I have experienced that. I definitely have experienced that. Having a project that takes place in the Philippines, or having a project, featuring someone who's Filipino American, being told like, oh, well, only Filipino Americans are going to want to see that, right? Whereas I don't think anyone ever thinks about that when there's a white American character on screen. No one's ever saying like, oh, only white Americans are going to watch that, right? I'm expected to like that as a Filipino American, as a queer Filipino American. I'm expected to watch everything, right? So it's really easy to make this misguided argument from people in the industry to say, we can't make these certain films because it's too risky. There won't be people who watch it, or there won't be people who understand it, which is why it's also incredibly important when you do have films like Lingua Franca being on Netflix, right? Which is a platform that services and reaches so many people, right? Like, we can take that argument and say you can't make that argument anymore, right? Because there are films that are doing that. But certainly I have faced that. And I do think it's a lot of people who are scared. It's a lot of people who are scared to see what happens when you put stories out there that, deviate from what they know, or maybe what they're used to. So I think it also, part of the challenge is finding people who will embrace that, will take that risk, and really understand that there is an audience for it, right? And it's one of those things, you don't know if there's an audience for it unless you put it out there and tell the audience it's there, right? So it's that whole chicken and egg thing, right? So again, I think there are certain challenges, but in my opinion, it's really at the hands sometimes of misguided arguments and people who are scared.
Right. Thanks, BJ.
Yeah, so I guess building off of like some of the challenges that you guys face, I guess there is a trend of these like triple threat filmmakers wearing the hat of like, director, writer, producer, all at the same time. I'm curious, does that make the process easier? Are there any pros and cons to that?
And for Joel, I would say you are the triple threat filmmaker and actor. So that's your angle there.
Well, I can go first because I'm not going to talk about film. It's about theater. So I do produce, write, and direct my own shows. And I would say that it's a double-edged thing, just like most things. If you are doing everything, you have control. You have complete control. But complete control is sometimes not a great thing, because like when you're acting, directing, that's hard enough because you don't, when you're on stage, you don't really see yourself, right? So you'll need to get an assistant director to do that, but that's doable. It's the director producer thing where I find myself clashing with myself, because as a producer, I want a life-size helicopter, I want a falling chandelier, I want a waterfall, right? As a director, that's what I want. As a producer, I'm like, no, sorry, you get this one box and this tree, that's it. So yeah, so the short answer is it's a double-edged thing, at least for the theater.
Yeah. Well, I will have to excuse Isabel because she's not a triple threat. She's a quintuple threat.
Oh, yes.
Okay. And
yes.
she starred, she directed, she edited, she produced it, and she acted in it. Oh, yes, starred, edited, produced, and she wrote it. We also have such a thing on Broadway that as producers, when we do auditions, triple threats are being a thing of the past. We look for the quintuple threats. In theater, the fourth is that the actor is capable of performing in a different language. And the fifth one is able to perform with a musical instrument. So those are the quintuple threat in the theater. But going back to lingua franca, yes, Isabel is a quintuple threat, and I'll use her. I've been with Isabel to so many panels, so I'm paraphrasing her answers based on this question as always. She's very objective. I remember her not fighting, arguing with our DP, Isaac Banks, because as you can see, Lingua Franca has so many gorgeous shots, right? And as DP, of course, you want all those gorgeous shots that you did be in the film. But Isabel's like the imaginary scissors, like, and all that. And to her, editing is the continuation of the storytelling, because the directing is that you direct everyone on how you foresee the film to be. And of course, since she wrote it, she had a vision. And editing is the continuation of the storytelling. And acting is actually just taking off one person for her to direct, because she doesn't have to tell herself, oh, you got to do this and this. This is your what's the term? You have to start in this situation. So to her, it's quite an easy breezy 5 hats that she had to juggle, I suppose. But I call her she's a unicorn for me. That's it. That's all I can say. She's a unicorn.
Yeah, I think it's a challenge to be a multi-hyphenate, right? In terms of doing more than one role. And I think a lot of us who are filmmakers, we're in filmmaking because we like the collaborative nature of it. So we don't want to necessarily do it alone and do everything. However, I think, speaking for myself, kind of speaking a little bit to what Joel did, I end up doing a lot of producing of my own films. And it's not because I don't want a producer, but part of me needs to understand the film also from that aspect, maybe, and be involved with those conversations. But yeah, it's definitely a challenge because you have to wear all the hats sometimes you have to wear the multiple hats at the same time, right? But for me, it's always a matter of collaborating, even if I am, working in different roles.
And I'm so glad we actually have those quintuplet threats because of you guys, we have films like this. So for our US based panelists, so that's PJ and Jhett, right? How can Filipino American films break through in the local industry in the Philippines? And then that's just coming from, coming from my observation that while we celebrate a lot of that here, we don't see much coming through. And I don't know, Jhett, if this is a technicality. I know Lingua Franca is not showing in the Philippines on Netflix. And please share why that is.
Oh my God, I'm going to have so much flack from every direction when I answer this question. Okay, but, I got to be honest. When I was considering collaborating with producers in the Philippines, talking about money, because I'm changing the trajectory of my career here in the United States. In the East Coast, I'm the only Filipino producer on Broadway, right? And I've been trying to change that. I've been inviting producers also to take a look at what I'm doing here. I'd be happy to take on anybody, just learn. I'm willing to share. So I thought I could bring what I've learned over there and somehow share. I've learned that networks there, they keep talking about globalizing their content, to appeal to globally. But it seems like, they have these consultants that honestly, I don't think they know the word to globalize the content. Because again, I've pitched one too many projects. Because to me, the way I see it, Philippines is not a market indicator in terms of global box office. I'm so sorry. Even in Southeast Asia, when you talk to global distributors, you have different territories in the world, and there's one Southeast Asia. Usually they don't take that. And in Southeast Asia, Philippines actually is not part of Southeast Asia. Philippines is by itself a standalone territory, because they just don't know why the Filipino films, the highest grossing films there are, I'm not gonna name names, but you know what they are. But globally, Filipino films that have been produced, globally distributed, our highest grossing is Henry Luna at $5.6 million. So that's the standard right there. Again, I'm just talking about the films that have globally recognized, not just produced for Filipino consumption. Okay, there's a difference. I'm not talking about the Metro Manila Film Festival films, because that's just for Filipino audiences. So to me, I've been doing is that I'm merging my Broadway, my limited Hollywood connection, and the Asian capital. That's my business model right now. And my first try was actually with Crazy Rich Asian. I tried that. I represented Chris Aquino in the deal. I thought, okay, this works. Now what's next? And then Lingua Franca happened. Eamon, actually, I saw him on Broadway with the play, The Present, with Kate Blanchett. So he is a Broadway star, Eamon Farron. And of course, Lynn Cohen is also there. And we had other A-list casts that unfortunately did not make it to the film because of their conflicts. So I just hope, I personally, I'm not trying to compete with the Filipino films in our homeland, because Filipino producers over there are already doing a great job with that. And to me, I'd like to raise the bar and breaking through the other territories that we could sell, because storytelling is universal, and I guess it's the way how you tell the story.
In my experience, having a film that's a documentary, right, in the nonfiction space, specifically thinking about the Philippines, I think documentary is still a new form of filmmaking that's being recognized in the Philippines. Even the screenings that I have had in the Philippines, even at festivals like Cinemalaya, like documentary is still very much not quite hitting the main programming that it could have, that you do see in festivals like Sundance, for instance, here in North America and the United States, where there is equal weight. So I think there's that challenge for, my film in particular. I don't know how much I can say, but, I released my documentary in 2018. We screened it in the Philippines in 2018. I just signed actually with a major entertainment company in the Philippines to represent the film and to be distributing the film. But it's taken me 2 years to do that. And there was a lot of hesitation from Filipino distributors and studios because of that, because I think they're not quite sure what to do with documentary. They're not quite sure about taking the risk of something coming from the United States with Filipino content, for instance. And to that, again, I would just say I hope there's people there that are taking the risk that's going to try to do that, because I do think there are people in the Philippines who are interested in, the diaspora and people coming from the United States and Filipinos elsewhere and their stories. And again, it just takes, one or two films to do that, to kind of prove that. But from what I can tell, from the time that I've spent in the Philippines and looking at the industry, I think you're right. It's a lot of films that are being, written, directed, produced, made in the Philippines, screening in the Philippines, right? But I think, even as we're acknowledging here, there's Filipinos, right, all over the world with stories all over the world. So I think audiences in the Philippines are definitely going to respond to that also. It just takes distributors and the studio system to also recognize that.
Luella, I'm sorry, I realized I didn't answer your question on. Actually, Lingua Franca was scheduled to open exclusively at Cinema 76 in Quezon City on November 6th. Okay, our distributor there is TBA Studios, who's also a co-production partner of Lingua Franca. Unfortunately, the interagency task force on COVID extended the closure of Philippine cinema until December. So I can't quite tell you yet what's our next step, because actually it's Isabel and I were supposed to do a Zoom. She's doing it right now. We're announcing what is next, and I'll let the team announce it, but I can't unfortunately share it here. But we will be there. We will be in the Philippines before the year is over.
Oh, good, good. And I appreciate you guys being candid about, the realities of, the film industry here in the US and in the Philippines. But again, we're hopeful. We're hopeful that this is actually the start of, more collaborations between creatives between the two countries, right? And actually, I just wanted to follow up on PJ's comment. You mentioned documentaries, and I agree. We don't see a lot of that coming out yet. But do you think, though, that there is an appetite for it among Filipino audiences, especially if it could be an effective tool for social change or legislative change, which I think is very relevant, especially with your work in Call Her Ganda.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely, I do. I mean, there's more documentaries every day that are being screened in the Philippines and being recognized. Like even there's a film that just is on the film festival circuit right now called To Calm the Pig, right, which has been winning a lot of awards. That's coming from the Philippines. That's screened in the Philippines as well. There's a festival that just happened that focused on 100 years of documentaries, I think, in the Philippines. And I think it was incredibly, well attended with a lot of interest. So I think it's there for sure.
That is great to hear.
Okay, great. Thank you all for a great discussion. Now we want to make sure we make some time for some audience questions, both in Zoom and on our Facebook Live. Everett, Lauren, do we have any questions?
Yeah, great discussion so far. I do have a question from one of our fellow Filipino Young Leader Program alumnus, JP Ferrer. He asked, what projects do you have that the Fil-Am community can pull together to make it happen? Kind of a super pack of Fil-Am filmmaking, unquote.
Anyone?
PJ? All right, I'll go first. Yes, well, my next project is also with Isabel Sandoval. We formed a company, 7107 Entertainment. I think you can guess why 7107. So it's with Carlo Villayomi, Isabel, and our Manila counterpart, Darlene Malimas. So the four of us, we have a pipeline of films that we will be producing, hopefully in the next 5 years. We're rolling that out. Mainly, we're crossing over our great Filipino artists and merge them with Hollywood actors. So that's where we're going. And my next immediate film with Isabel is called Park Avenue. I can announce this because it's actually been announced before. It was just delayed with Sharon Cuneta, Tony Labrusca, and Jody Santa Maria are the three Filipino artists that have already signed in the project. And the COVID hit, and we're just on a wait and see period at the moment. But yeah, there's more to come.
Yeah, I currently have some new projects right now. I just I think it was last weekend I previewed a new doc series that I'm making with Cecilia Mejia, who's been mentioned earlier, called Kapwa, which is basically looking at Filipino Americans and their experience during COVID and kind of the critical conversations that are inspired between them and their family. So I've been working on that. I have another documentary project that is in production right now. I have one that's in post-production. So it might be a little bit of time before that one comes out, but if anyone wants to pay attention to what I'm doing, they can always, follow up, catch me on social media, things like that, and be kept up to date that way.
But I want to double down on JP's question. Is there a way to form a super PAC of Filipino producers? Do you think that's possible? I think he's going to be one of the investors.
Of course, of course, it is possible. That to me is a dream by itself. But the thing about my projects is that I don't wait on my dream to happen. I just make it happen. If they're not on board, projects are produced with or without anyone in particular. That will just tell you if it's successful enough after you see it, right? If there was synergy in between the teams,
right?
But yeah, it's a hard ask also with the big wigs. They want to see our body of work first, Unfortunately, with me, it's just theater for now, and it's just starting with films. Going back to the documentary, even my documentary has won in 11 countries already. But when I premiered in the Philippines, I had offers from networks to do it there also, but I didn't want to cut the global rights, and now I finally got a distributor for global release. So I'll announce that soon. It's to me, producing wise, that's the toughest challenge, is that we filmmakers, we have to do things first, and then people from the Philippines, they will notice it after the fact that we've done it, right? And then they will praise us and all that, but they really were not there from the get-go. They mainly because they think arts is just an expense, it's not an industry. It's a very tough challenge to tackle that.
Did you want to say something, TJ?
Yeah, just to follow up to JP, a super PAC of Fil-Am filmmaking. Yeah, that'd be amazing. Do it. Like you create it. I will definitely tell you about projects that I'm working on. I mean, I think it would be incredible to have some kind of pooled resource of funding, to support this. And there's certainly a lot of filmmakers who could use the help. But I currently don't know of anything like that that's actually happening, but it doesn't mean it can't. So maybe, JP, if you have the idea, reach out to people like me, and I'm sure there's a way to do it somehow.
If there's a way to include people who are not actually in America, hey, I'm in.
Oh my gosh. I think we have something.
You heard it, everyone. We're forming it right here.
Right. This is what I love about this. Like whenever I'm on a webinar with people and something like this, they always come up with projects together. So I'm looking forward to seeing Joel and Jhett and PJ working on one project that all the Filipino American community will rally for. Whew. Love that. Love that. Okay. Thank you so much. Again, I appreciate you guys being very candid. I love all the discussion. I feel like I'm going to have to go back to this live again on FYLPRO page, so I'm not missing anything. It was a really insightful discussion, and it's good to see what's happening in the back end, of all these great films that are coming out from our community. But before we go, do you have any parting words for our audience? That's for Joel, for Jhett, PJ. Perhaps let them know about any other projects you have in the future that you haven't mentioned yet. Let's start with you, Joel.
Okay. First, the projects. I'm constantly writing. So I'm currently writing 3 musicals. I'm in the middle of writing 3 musicals. By the way, right now, if you tune into tickettome.net, my musical Guadalupe, the musical about the miracle of Guadalupe, is streaming now for like an hour or 2 more. So I'm constantly writing. and just waiting for theater to go back to normal. But when it's back to normal, I'll be ready. Okay, so okay, my message for the people watching and artists everywhere is do it because you love it. Okay, I don't know what it's like in the film world, but if you're in theater to make a lot of money, you're in the wrong business. Do it because you love it, and because you love it, it'll sustain you, and because you love it, you will put your life into it, and when you put your life into it, people will notice it, and that's where you will get your reward.
Very well said. PJ?
Yeah, as I mentioned, people can, follow me on social media, check out my website. I have several documentary projects happening right now. I'm developing a piece with Frontline. I'm even working on a scripted project to do a narrative project, which would be exciting, hopefully within the next year. In terms of parting words, what's coming to mind with a lot of the discussion that came earlier about like how do we support work and why is it taken so long to see this emerging movement of Filipino American films. This is what I will say to people who are watching. When I was growing up, I was not encouraged to be an artist. Art to me was something that I loved, but it was treated as something that was a hobby, kind of what Jhett was saying earlier, like it wasn't treated as something that could be a profession, for instance. And I think, to people who are listening, encourage people to think about art because, we are talking about, when we're talking about things like social justice and social change and things like that, we also have to think about those who are helping create culture and those who are steering culture. Right. And the arts falls into that. So it's important to support filmmakers and musicians and writers. All of these arts are really incredibly important. So that also means encouraging people to be them, not only just watching and supporting the work, but also encouraging people to become these artists. And I think all of us probably have had some time in their life some kind of pressure to be working in the healthcare industry or be a scientist or be an engineer. But how many of us have been encouraged and pushed to be an artist and to really think about our creative voice and the power our creative voice can have, right? So I will leave you with that it's incredibly important. I think tonight shows that. I think the movie we watched shows that, right? So let's encourage the next generation and let's encourage the current generation to continue this and build upon this.
Yes. Thank you, PJ. Jhett?
Yes, thank you again for everyone for spending your time with us. On behalf of my team, we really appreciate it. To add to Joel's and PJ's points, two things. Personally, I'd like to empower the youth here in this chat room to stay woke, right? To be aware of what's going on, especially in our community. I know I'm in my 40s and I'll be gone soon. It is just my wish that somebody could take the torch and continue, what we've started and let the embers burn, keep burning. Also, the takeaway from the film that I'd like you to have is that be grateful that we don't have to walk on Olivia's horrific life being undocumented and all. So let's have a reflection and be grateful, especially for next month for Thanksgiving, that we don't have to deal with that. And think also for have empathy to those who are going through that every day. And lastly, the women empowerment, towards the end of the film, that Olivia chose her own agency, that she cannot be defied by anyone to her existence, that not one man should play with her adversities. So love may happen, but it should be in the right way. So magandang gabi at mabuhay.
Well, thank you everyone for a very insightful discussion tonight. Well, that's all we have time for tonight. If you haven't already, please like our FYLPRO Facebook page to keep updated with news from us. If you want to support us and our many initiatives, I'm going to plug the COVID-19 Task Force. caretaker project, Tayo Help virtual help desk, tayohelp.com. And other initiatives to benefit the Fil-Am community, please go and support us at filpro.org/support.
Thank you. Thank you to all our panelists. PJ Raval, his movie Call Her Ganda is still on Amazon Prime. Jhett Tolentino, Lingua Franca is on Netflix if you want to watch it again. And of course, straight from Manila, Joel, thank you. Thank you for joining us. Your insight has been really, really helpful here in this discussion, having the side from the Philippines as well. We want to thank our crew led by Everett and Lauren. Say hello, guys.
Hi.
And I'm hoping Kate is still on. She stayed on. Kate, thank you so much for spending time with us tonight. Siron, thank you so much for joining us earlier. And all the rest of the alumni, Filipino Young Leaders Program alumni. I see Crystal, Everett, Lauren, see John Paul. I also see Nikki Trevino, Meriden, Phil J, Melissa Palma, Tiffany Batak, TJ Medel. Thank you so much for joining us. And our viewers, everybody, thank you for sharing this experience with us as we close out Filipino American History Month. I hope you all watch the great Filipino American films showing today. Please stay safe and be well. Good night, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.